Fraud and scams are indeed a scourge in America, across this country, not limited to Minnesota. Taxpayers are cheated when fraud is done against government programs. Beneficiaries are harmed as well. Fraud in the private sector steals billions from consumers and in extreme cases drains families of life savings and sends them into a cycle of misery. Unfortunately, the reality is the Trump administration is systematically dismantling the anti-fraud programs of the federal government. Those programs aim to deter fraud, punish wrongdoers, and bring restitution to victims. The administration is undermining all of that. It is fair to say, in fact, that through its actions, the administration is fostering more fraud, facilitating more scams, empowering corporate and small-time fraudsters alike, and depriving victims of the justice to which they are entitled. As regards Minnesota, there plainly is some fraud that has gone on, as there is throughout this country. Where there is fraud, it should be investigated and prosecuted. No one wants tougher enforcement more than legitimate providers and the beneficiaries of the programs that are being defrauded. That said, it is unhelpful to make claims about fraud in Minnesota or anywhere else based on exaggerated numbers or shaky evidence. And in the case of Minnesota, it's worth pointing out that the efforts by the U.S. Attorney are being undermined by this administration driving out the people who are engaged in the prosecution of the fraud in Minnesota and by diverting the FBI from its work on fraud to immigration enforcement. Moreover, there is no justification for suspending social service programs, vital social service programs, as we all agree, as punishment for fraud. That punishes innocent people and leaves the fraudsters alone. Nor, obviously, is there any rationale for pursuing suspension of programs on a partisan basis. Now, the subtitle of this hearing is dealing with fraud in Minnesota and beyond. I wanted to pull back and talk for a few moments about the beyond. To be clear, the actions of this administration are undermining governmental, anti-fraud, and accountability agencies. When it comes to corporate fraud or scams perpetrated by those close to the administration, the policy is to ignore, forgive, or coddle the wrongdoers if they're actually caught. Moreover, the president and his top aides are shattering norms of conflict of interest and basic ethical standards, creating a culture of impunity that for sure is encouraging more fraud against the government and around the country. This is not an administration that is determined to root out fraud. In short, for the super rich and for the super connected, this is an administration that is taking the anti-fraud cops off the beat. And for those who manage to get caught anyway, they give them and are doling out get-out-of-jail-free cards. Let me explain the evidence behind this. When it comes to the Department of Justice, this administration has gutted or disbanded the public integrity section, the consumer protection branch of the agency. It has fired the agency's top ethics advisor. It has issued guidance to soften corporate crime enforcement. The president has pursued his pardon power in strange service of fraudsters. Leaving aside the January 6th pardon, more than 1/3 of all of the president's pardons have gone to those who perpetrated fraud or similar kinds of crimes. Those pardons have led to the cancellation of $1.5 billion in fines and restitution owed, including more than $1 billion owed to victims of fraud and wrongdoing. So the pardons themselves have re-victimized the victims. The president has eviscerated the system of inspectors general that the chairman was referencing earlier and for whom has done so much to advance that IG system. Not only did he fire 17 IGs at the start of his administration, he is responsible for firing 2/3 of presidentially appointed inspectors general. 3/4 of the inspector general top offices were empty as of October. We've looked at the staffing inside the IG's offices, drastic cuts across the board. The president had shuttered the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, illegally in our estimation, closing down the most important anti-fraud agency in the federal government. He has slashed staffing at the Internal Revenue Service by more than a quarter, guaranteeing an increase in tax fraud, avoidance, and cheating, primarily by the super rich, and costing taxpayers approximately $200 billion over the next 10 years, according to Yale University analysts. He has canceled enforcement against large corporations more than 150 separate times that we've been able to document in the first year of the administration. He has engaged in rampant conflicts of interest, including most startlingly a joint venture with a UAE-affiliated company, as reported by the Wall Street Journal this past weekend, compromising our foreign policy, destroying basic ethics standards, and inviting more fraud and wrongdoing by others around the country. He has destroyed the East Wing of the White House and then solicited funds from corporations and the super rich to pay for his ballroom. Our investigations found that 2/3 of those corporations contributing had government contracts, more than $200 billion in contracts over the previous 3 years. This committee is absolutely right to focus on fraud. Senator Cruz is absolutely right to bring his righteous anger against fraud. But that fraud is not limited to Minnesota. That is small potatoes compared to what this administration is perpetrating. I encourage this committee to focus on that fraud, to pursue the reversal of the policies that I've identified, and serve the American people who absolutely, on a unified basis, want to counter fraud and wrongdoing in the government and in the private sector.